What is going on, YouTube people? Here for another edition of the weekly sports card market update. News, charts, and graphs. A lot of stuff to cover. Let's not mess around. Let's just go ahead and dive on in. First up, show stuff. Local show on Saturday. Busy. This is the one that's set up at Hartville Flea Market once a month. Did not purchase anything. Did sell a couple of baseball slabs. Sold my Junior Caminero auto and sold my Bobby Witt SP PSA 10. It's funny, I comped those cards, especially the Witt. The Junior stayed the same, but the Witt actually went up a little bit. I had comped everything right prior to Chantilly. I sold to a dealer who pays pretty well. I got like 80, this is going to sound silly, but like 82%, 83%, which I was perfectly fine with. You know, if I list them on eBay, I'm going to pay them, 13 to 15, depending on if I promote the listing or not. So why not just take the cash in hand? Looked at a CJ Stroud, red, white, and blue. They were asking 500 on it. That felt a little high. And then someone had a Ramirez Topps Finest 2014 refractor auto in a PSA 10 that was actually reasonably priced, but the auto was very streaky on it. It's something Jose Ramirez is known for, but show's pretty busy. A lot of stuff moving, a lot of Pokemon moving, a lot of Pokemon moves with that show, man, for only a couple people that sell it. Non-sports continues to be all the rage. Before we dive into a litany of news, our friends over at Comc.com, sponsor of the weekly sports card market update. I actually have a package arriving. That's right. I shipped cards home from Comc, and they're getting here pretty quick. I requested shipment early last week. I think it was on like Monday. Those cards are set to arrive the early part of this week. There is a PC card in there, a really fun PC card that I'm super excited to get in hand. And then 2 slabs that I specifically bought for the National later this year, CJ Stroud card and a Jamar Chase card that I picked up on Comc. So probably do some type sort of little video around that later this week. One of the, I don't want to let the secret out, but one of the things that I've really been watching hard is Comc auctions on eBay. I've been paying a very close eye to that and flagging a lot of things to bid on. Now, we've gotten outbid on a lot of stuff, but that is some of the stuff that I am looking for, is paying attention to those auctions, seeing if something potentially slips through the cracks. I'll be probably sending off a boatload of cards to them once Bowman rolls around. But if you're not using Comc to buy and sell cards, I highly recommend you go check them out. First up, a couple things we have not talked about, and then we'll kind of run through some recaps of the week. I know, we're walking around the Chantilly show especially, and most shows that I go to, the in-person comment that I get the most is love the Sunday video. It is my one-stop shopping. So that's the reason why we cover some of the stories that we talked about earlier in the week, because some people do not watch the stuff earlier in the week. They rely on the Sunday to get them at least a taste. And then if something catches their interest, they could always go back and watch the full video from earlier in the week. This one we did not talk about. This is from Sports Collectors Daily. This started popping around, I think, Friday night into Saturday. The OPG case that sold $3.7 million has not fully been paid. It's still in the possession of Heritage. It sounds like the buyer doesn't really want it anymore. Now, he's paid about 80% of it. I think $3 million of the $3.75 million has been paid. He's just trying to find someone to take it off his hands, says he does not want a profit for it. There's a bunch of good quotes on here. I'd recommend going checking out the full article over on SCD if you want the full details. But you would think, and I don't know the high-end game. That is the part that I just don't have a good knowledge base on. I don't play in that realm. I don't understand the high-end auction house game. I just feel like if you're using one of these places like a Heritage or a Goldin or somewhere like that, that getting paid on the other end should just be like an automatic. Like, it should just happen. There shouldn't be a waiting around for it. I have to imagine this is a pretty bad look to let something like this go. And maybe this happens, like I said, maybe this happens all the time, and I'm just completely clueless on it just because I don't live in that world. But I don't know. It just feels like if you're going to one of these places to sell something, you kind of expect to get paid for the item that you sold immediately, and that you would want to take possession of the item immediately as well. So little buyer's remorse, it feels like, on that OPC hockey case. This one going around, speaking of things that I don't know anything about, UFC, but I figured I'd share this because I didn't see a lot of people talking about it, because if you're into it, it's an interesting promotion, and it's intriguing to kind of see Topps continue to play with probably, honestly, the best thing they have done since Fanatics purchased them this is called the main event buyback, but the MVP buyback that is now trickling into UFC. So there is a UFC fight. It's happening. I'm recording this on Saturday, later tonight. I don't know anything about UFC. I've never really watched it. It's just completely out of it's just not in my spectrum. They are doing a Topps buyback for UFC 300. Basically, the gist is, if you open 2024 Topps Chrome UFC and one of whatever main event fighter wins, you will get buyback credit. Works very similar to the MVP buyback program. So whoever wins the main event tonight, and there's a bunch of rules and regulations on if there's a draw or someone drops out and all that stuff. But it looks like similar to the baseball one, $20 on a base card, $40 on refractors, $100 on numbered stuff, and then $200 on low numbered stuff. So if you're in the UFC and you rip a lot of this stuff, or have ripped a lot of this stuff, you might want to start digging out your commons. So just throwing this out there just in case some of you all are into this. Like I said, I am not. This is not a product that I'm going to chase, but it is intriguing to see Topps use this promotion in a different sport. I have to imagine once we get football and basketball in-house, like we get Topps Chrome basketball and Topps Chrome football back in-house, that we will see MVP buybacks for those sports as well. And it's listen, you boys and girls, you can knock Fanatics all you want. They do a lot of dumb stuff. They do a lot of stuff we don't like. But I continue to say it. They absolutely nailed the MVP buyback, and it is nice to see them kind of roll that in other stuff. And it's interesting to kind of roll it around a single event like this. I just find that very, very interesting. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully you could take advantage of that. Let's actually stick on Fanatics, and then we'll circle back to Beckett. Also announced this week's Fanatics Fest in NYC in mid-August. As I kind of talked about in the video that I did on this on Friday, the timing on this, I don't know if this is just when the center was open or what, but being, 2 to 3 weeks after the National, the same weekend as the East Coast National, which typically skews a little bit more vintage, is what I've always been told. I've never been to that show. I guess you're kind of going to, double down, and maybe some people will go to this for a day and the East Coast National. I don't really know. Still a lot of missing details for this. I don't see a spot for dealers to sign up. So I don't know how much of a traditional card show this is going to be. They talk about having a trading pit and some of those things on there, but we still, a lot of information, and their website appears to be a little broken. Still a lot of information that we do not know to this point. So we'll see how this all flags out. I have poked around on this. And what I mean by that is I have looked at some hotels. I kind of have the playbook down for this because I've been to New York Comic Con 2 years in a row, and it's in the same center. So if I decide to go, I would probably drive into Jersey and either stay in Jersey or mass transit over to the city and stay in the city. That's what we typically end up doing versus flying in. It's only a little over a 6-hour drive, and it is an easy drive for me. So I'm considering it. It's not cheap to travel to New York City. And with wheels already in motion to attend New York Comic Con later in the year, I don't know that I want 2 expensive trips to New York City that close together, but we'll see. We will see. It is on my radar to check out. And like I said again, I don't think if you were walking into this expecting the national, I think that's the real key takeaway here that people keep getting hung up on. I saw a lot of narrative this week in the Facebook groups, like Sports Card Nonsense Facebook group and a few others, where they're like, "Oh, that's it. Fanatics is coming for the national." This is catering to two different audiences. This is not your traditional, I'm going to go walk around and look at 500 tables full of sports cards and non-sports cards over the course of a weekend. This is going to be much more of pomp, circumstance, and spectacle, if you will, with vendors and a bunch of FOMO items for you to chase and buy into. Kind of the way that these things work. So, curious to see how it all flags out. I am definitely strongly considering trying to pull off attending that thing. The Beckett prices, just as a reminder, Beckett shook things up this week with prices. I haven't done one in a really long time, like a current state of where we are with grading and just kind of throw it all into one video with, what you're looking at pricing wise, membership wise, turnaround time wise across the big four companies and just kind of see where we sit. I have a general idea of where everything is, but I have not laid it all out in a spreadsheet or anything like that. So I may end up doing something like that with this Beckett change up in pricing. Nice to see. Like I said, still a lot of things they got to fix to really get there. I think the biggest issue here is turnaround time still being a little on the slower side compared to everybody else. To me, what this pricing screams is you really want to use Beckett, and that's fine. If that's what you really want to do, more power to you. You're going to save a little bit of money. But if you're grading for resale, 90% of the stuff should probably be going to PSA, in all honesty, if all you're going to do is take it and sell the card as fast as possible. Unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. And it's not going to change unless people pay stronger for the other companies. And let's be realistic, that is probably not going to happen anytime soon. Next up, speaking of PSA, we had the PSA eBay news earlier this week, along with the Goldin auction news. Speaking of high-end auction houses like we did earlier, once again, this pretty much just boils down to eBay wanting a high-end marketplace, PSA wanting a common man's marketplace, and probably to divest themselves of Goldin because they just don't think that relationship was working out super well. The side conversation to all of this, and this kind of ties into Fanatics events. One of the guests at Fanatics events on the vendor list is PSA. It is the only grading company listed. Dustin pointed this out in his video. I noticed it as well. They've also done that $60 credit on Fanatics Live if you renewed your PSA membership. And then PSA is also working with eBay on the other side. PSA feels like, or collectors, whatever version of it you want to use, that they are almost trying to be Switzerland. They want to be friends with everybody as much as humanly possible. And it does seem like the business ties, like relationship-wise, between PSA and Fanatics is growing by the day. And it really makes you, it really shows you how big of a deal PSA acquiring SGC was, because the rumors continue to circulate that the main reason, now you can believe this if you want, I'm just going off of what I'm hearing, and I've heard this from multiple different places, and it makes sense when you lay it out like this. The main reason PSA went after SGC was to block Fanatics, plus the talent acquisition. And when you think back to just a few months ago, Fanatics was doing a lot of business with SGC with those $9 promotions. Since then, since Collectors has acquired SGC, all the promotions, all the stuff has been with PSA and Fanatics. We have now, according to SGC, they're still backed up, so that's why they're not doing specials. I don't know that we see those $9 top specific specials come back. Maybe they do, because they are under their Collectors umbrella. So if Fanatics is willing to work with PSA, you would think they would be able to work with their sister company. But PSA and Fanatics continue to be very buddy-buddy with each other. And it makes me think that now that SGC has been taken off the table for a potential Fanatics maneuver, I'm wondering if, because they have teased in the past that, maybe they wouldn't even get into grading or it was a lower priority. I wonder if they just go the route of, you know what? It is just not worth it for us to throw a bunch of money at this, whether it be buy Beckett, start from scratch, go after one of the small fries and try to build them up. And now that SGC is off the table, it's just not worth our time and effort to try to go at PSA. Let's just partner up with them. And then it also helps them from a perception standpoint of we are not, grading the cards that we are also manufacturing, because I know some people would have some problems with that. So you have Fanatics on one side and all their, little bundle of companies, eBay on their side with their little, cadre of people that they've done deals with or relationships with. And then PSA kind of floating in the middle, just wanting to work with everybody. And that's really the ultimate place to be, other than, Fanatics. But the PSA side of things seems to be looking pretty good when it comes down to all these various business dealings. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump into charts and graphs. Link in the description down below. If you want to play around with these things on your own, you can get a free trial. And you can also get a 20% discount for life. First up, OJ Simpson passed away this week, and you guessed it, his card prices jumped up. This is his 1970 Topps. I put this in a PSA 8 because it transacts a little bit more often. Over the last 60 days, up 90%. And you can see right at the tail end of that thing really took off. Now, I was not of the age. I was born in 1981. I did not see OJ Simpson play. But boy, oh boy, do I remember the Bronco chase. I was staying at my grandma. She was babysitting me when that was going on. And I think we were watching, I don't remember what we were watching, either Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, I think. And they interrupted it. I was, wasn't terribly old. And I remember watching that and then the trial afterwards and all that drama. But I never really had any ties to him as a player. It was kind of before my time. I remember it was a big deal for my parents, like my dad specifically, because he watched him play growing up. But I still to this day remember, I don't know why, childhood events like that, it's weird the ones that stick out in your mind. This is one of them. I remember this one, exactly where I was and what I was doing. The other two big ones are the Challenger explosion. I remember that one vividly. I remember exactly where I was sitting, exactly what my mom was doing, exactly what I was doing. And I was only, I think I was 4 years old when that happened. And then around that time as well, if you're from the Northeast Ohio area, in the mid 80s, I believe it was 85, which we're probably coming up on the anniversary because it happened in May. There was a very large, very bad night of storms, and a bunch of tornadoes came through, including, I think it was an EF4 monster that rolled through the Trumbull-Mahoning County area and did a ton of damage, was on the ground for a very long period of time. And I remember we went to my grandma's, different grandma, for because she had a basement, and we didn't have a basement in the house that we were in at the time. So my mom, we lived very close. We went over there, and I remember to this day, the tornado had already passed us, and we were watching it from her front porch. It was a couple miles away, and that has really stuck in my mind this entire time. Just seeing the power of that thing go across the horizon line, and you could just see debris and all sorts of stuff swirling around it. And same thing with that. I was probably only 4 or 5 years old, and I remember a lot of very random and specific things about that entire evening. As a very, very young child, it's weird how that stuff sticks with you. But the Bronco chase, sorry for the little side stories there, but the Bronco chase is kind of one of those things that I remember exactly where I was when I was watching it. And I don't really, it's just weird because I have no direct ties to OJ outside of that event. Like, I didn't watch him growing up, but it's weird that that one always kind of stuck with me. But I have a feeling probably a lot of people are like that. I'd be curious, growing up, do you have something like that? I have a feeling for the younger generation, a lot of people is going to be 9/11. And obviously I remember that one, but I was a lot older. I was in college when that happened. So curious for your random world event memories that have kind of stuck with you, where you remember like exactly what you had for dinner and all that sort of stuff in the comments down below. Let's switch over to baseball. Football, not a lot going on right now as we kind of lead up to the NFL draft. Baseball, Bobby Witt. I jumped on the J-Rod train in the preseason. He has been terrible to start the year. Notoriously, 2 years in a row now, an absolute dreadful start. And then last year he picked it up and ended up finishing really strong. But his running mate from that rookie class, Bobby Witt, having a hell of a season. The Royals in general having a hell of a start to the season, but Witt is just scorching the baseball. Over the last 60 days, we have his 2020 Bowman Chrome base and his refractor. The base auto is up about 25%, and the refractor is up about 15%. Like I said, he has been on absolute fire, just smoking the ball all over the place. Wish I had him on more fantasy teams. Also off to a strong start, Anthony Volpe, also from 2022 Bowman. His stuff has really jumped up as well. PSA 10 base up about 10%, but the refractor is up about 40 to 45%, once again, over the last 60 days. I like using 60 days here because it takes you back to about mid-February, right before spring training, where things were just kind of starting to go up. And once again, Volpe, very strong start to the season. I do have him on the baseball league I am in with Dakota and his crew, one Mr. Sports Cards Anonymous. The other big baseball story this week, Jackson Holiday finally got the call up. His prices did see a little bit of a bump up once again over the last 60 days. He's only up 3% on the chart, but you could see him and Churio both were the two hyped February guys. When I went to shows in February, that's all everyone was talking about was Churio and Holiday. As we moved into spring training, the narrative shifted to Spencer Jones, Chase DeLauder, and a few other guys that played really well in the spring. Churio played well enough to make the team and has been perfectly fine to start the beginning part of the season. His stuff has straight gone down. He's down almost 40% from those February highs. Holiday dipped down on the news that he was getting sent down and also just kind of out of the zeitgeist for a little bit. He gets the call and it immediately spikes right back up again. I mean, this is his first Bowman. This got all the way down to just over $1,000. It is now up to around 1.5, but that's only good enough to take it back to what it was trending at the peak hype in the preseason. So once again, there's phases on these prospects like this. You know, one of the best exit times is the spring training hype. And because typically what happens, it just dips. And then when they get called up, it just goes right back to where it was in the spring. You could have just sold it in the spring and cashed out. It's not always going to work like that, but it feels like more often than not, those spring peaks are usually the best time to sell. The other side note on this is, it doesn't look like Topps is going to play games with him in regards to product. They put out Topps Now cards and they smack the rookie logo on the Topps Now card. The way I understand it, and I'm sure Victor, the rookie card specialist, will weigh in on this one, is if you see that, it's usually a sign that it's going to be in mainline product. Now, what do they put him in? Do they SP him? We don't really know yet. I assume at minimum he's going to be in Series 2. And then ideally they throw him in Topps Chrome and don't hold him for Topps Chrome Update. I think that's really going to be the big thing to watch here, is if they end up putting him in Chrome or not, or if they save him for Update. Ideally, it's straight up Chrome, because then you would get him and Churio along with Carter, Ellie, and Dominguez and the other guys in Chrome as a mainline product. Once again, Topps Chrome is probably going to be a very, very hyped product based off the rookie class and also the MVP buyback chase. Talk about basketball. Last day of the NBA regular season is today. We are full playoff mode after today. I'm a little worried about my Cavs. They have not been playing great to kind of close out the season here. They did beat the Pacers. We'll see how seeding completely finishes up. I haven't had a chance to sit down and see what's in play for Sunday in regards to who could swap with who and where. But I absolutely love the NBA playoffs. One of my favorite times of year. Not much movement leading into the playoffs. Over the last 30 days, I just kind of sorted this. This is Silver Prism rookies on kind of who's gone up the most dollar value wise. Luka is the most, but percentage wise, it's really not that much. Only about 10%. He's been playing out of his mind. If I'm a Western Conference team, I want no part of the Dallas Mavericks. And then I heard, I've been listening to all the NBA podcasts this week, and he's starting to get MVP buzz. I mean, Joker seemed to have it sewed up, and he probably still does. But all of a sudden, Luka's getting a very, very late push as the Mavericks have finished extremely strong. And a really good season out of Kyrie as well. Anthony Edwards up about $75. That's about 13% for him. Another one who's been playing absolutely great. Tyrese Halliburton seems to have been picking things up lately after he's played an injury-riddled second half of the season. Jalen Brunson, no surprise there. Colin Sexton, of all people, former Cleveland Cavalier, actually playing really well to close out the season on a Jazz team that wants no part of winning. We got Cam Thomas, Dante DiVincenzo. You see this list gets off the rails fairly quickly. Jalen Green, his hype has fallen off after they went on their little run. But now we're in playoff time. Someone is probably going to make some sort of little run here, and their card prices are probably going to go up with them. Just depends on who it is and what the narrative ends up being. That's the time of year that we're in. And let's be honest, we're all just basically guessing if you're taking a bet on anybody. I did not chase, and I do not plan to chase any let me run after and get this guy's card because he's about to start the playoffs and his things are going to go up. That is a very, very, very dangerous game to play, and generally speaking, does not work out well for most. Just keep in mind, this time of year, you're going to have to be nimble and quick. If you have slabs that you're looking to move of any of these playoff guys, this is the ultimate don't get cute time of year because you think a series is going to go one direction and all of a sudden it can flip the script on you. Sometimes as these players advance, the best time to move is at the end of the previous series or the day or two in between. Don't wait until the next series comes along because things could go sideways quickly. The playoffs, anything could happen. But I'm excited to watch. I'd be interested to see who the Cavs end up matching up with. Do not have a lot of faith in them. Can Tatum finally do it and bring it home a lot? Tatum's values, I think, have the biggest downside if they do not at least make it to the NBA championship. And as a green Tatum Prism holder, I will have some vested interest in that run, even though it's not something I'm looking to sell, even if they won, unless the card just went absolutely crazy and we're not in 2021 anymore. I don't see that happening. So that's all I got for you, boys and girls. Curious for your thoughts and comments, as always, down below. We will see what this week brings, as this past week started kind of quiet and then went absolutely off the rails with just news stories day after day after day, the back half of the week. We will catch you, boys and girls, on the next one. Peace.